digitization of NBT publications have become necessary at this junction. This needs repositioning of NBT so as to meet the technological challenges in publishing. I believe the present initiative of changing its logo is also a part of its modernization process. The new logo, designed by NID Ahmedabad, is an essential move to further the steps that NBT is taking into the future. So I assure all possible support from my side to the National Book Trust in its endeavor to popularize books and the reading habits. So that was the given text. I'll also share my own thoughts. The NBT is definitely a very important resource for the country, and that was why it has been promoted all along the ages. And I'm glad that you're in a good environment to apply your thought for the propagation of book reading and also promoting our culture and heritage through our books. It is important that that these three are very, very intertwined. Our heritage, our culture, and languages are part of our legacy and are all very, very intertwined. Now, whatever good work that NBT is doing, like the excellent laboratories we have in India, excellent work is done there. But the important thing is the findings of that laboratory coming out of that laboratory and being beneficial to the society at large. Similarly, if the objective of NBT is to promote reading and to disseminate information about our heritage, culture, and also about individuals on the good things that are happening in the country. So it is important for this knowledge to come out in as quick a manner as possible. So I think NBT must look at leveraging on every resource in Government of India to meet your objectives. So now the new word that we're using in government is of convergence, where you converge what you want to do with what the other departments in Government of India are trying to do. Let's say our tourism department, our culture department, so it is important to work with them and see if our books can be placed there. So I think we have to look at this. The models of the new libraries you have created. Put Ahmedabad on the task, get them to come out with new designs of libraries that can be shared with state governments, and then we'll create interesting spaces for our children to go and read. It is a young generation, and I think we have to nurture this young generation. You are all aware of the demographic advantage that India has today. But how do we make their life more optimistic, more positive, and also let them realize that they are part of a very rich heritage? So I think it is on us to create those spaces, where the kids can intermingle, read different books, get onto the net. It's a very techno-savvy generation. Get onto the net, have little spaces where they can have discussions. Nice if some people who like to read alone, create nice, interesting, cozy spaces for them to come to. This is the kind of things I think we should be creating. And I think it should be a national endeavor. The lead should be taken by NBT, where you proactively start propagating these creation of these new libraries. You know what the image of libraries is today. So we have to make them more interesting for our children, and I think this is the lowest common denominator that we can create for our children. So I urge you all to think in that manner and do justice to the society at large. I am very pleased to see that there is a very distinguished panel in the trustees, and I'm sure that all of them will contribute towards the growth of NBT. And you have a very eminent officer in Veena who will give you all support from the ministry, and you can be rest assured that there is support from all of us at the Ministry of HRD. I would like to again congratulate all of you for the good work that you're doing at NBT, and thank you for waiting so long and making my day also special. Jai Hind.
At the outset, we are extremely happy and honored that we have two eminent personality scholars, Professor Narendra Béteille, one of India's leading sociologists, National Research Professor and Professor Emeritus of the University of Delhi, and Dr Narendra Jadhav, eminent economist, well-known social scientist, and a member of the Planning Commission for this August function. as an author who has been writing for nearly half a decade, I used to wonder how Panditji at that point of time, when hardly the independent India was hardly a decade old, decided to put up a book trust in at the national level, when the country as such was facing a whole lot of problems. So I used to feel that having put up 3 academies as tall pillars in the cultural space, Panditji would have felt that there is a need for one more pillar, one very strong pillar, so that the structure will be complete. So thus was born National Book Trust in 1957, and all eminent personalities have headed the organization, and with their blessings, rather, we are continuing to strive hard to carry out the goals set by Panditji. Panditji had laid down very clear guidelines for the National Book Trust. One is to make available quality books at moderate prices, promote the reading habits within the country, particularly among the rural masses, and overall, NBT should function like a book hospital, he said, and find out the real reasons why books are not being purchased and not read. This was 56 years back. I think the same issue is equally relevant today, or I would say more relevant, because when what he meant by book hospital, right now, because all those scenario has changed, the way things are happening around us, with this technological revolution sweeping across the globe, and the kind of changes that's happening in the publishing industry and among the reading public as such, reading habits as such, how exactly we can cope up with this scenario. And this is an area where I thought, NBT, we are trying to reinvent and reposition ourselves in this new era, how exactly we will go about. On the one hand, there is a view, okay, the reading space is shrinking, the book industry is facing problems. There's all kinds of views expressed all along the world. But according to the kind of information we have, although in the developed countries, particularly in the United States and Europe, after the initial boom, the digital revolution has reached some kind of a plateau. That the initial kind of enthusiasm perhaps may not be there, but still is growing. So this only gives, of course, again as an author, I was so happy that still the print book has a relevance over there, and the book reading habit hasn't come down, although there has been some shift from one segment to other, but overall space, this still remains. So we always feel that the digital publishing or the e-books and the print books, which we old-timers are used to, should coexist or will continue to coexist. See, it's not just competing with each other. We have to learn to coexist. So, as far as NBT is concerned, as a strategy, we are also getting into digital publishing because we cannot visualize that sector. And slowly, it takes time in a government organization, as you know. But we are changing. We are trying to change. So this is what on the Foundation Day or the Founders Day, we are trying to reinvent and reposition the role of NBT in the Indian publishing industry, publishing world as such. And the second point, perhaps I thought this is the occasion where I should touch upon, is that I personally feel that the role of Indian language writings, Indian language books have not been focused properly abroad. Although it's a literal treasure house to be explored, waiting to be discovered, very little is being done. Although there are many agencies at it, and we have taken a lead in that. We have formed a sort of, we have prepared a program through which the writings in Indian languages, be it Hindi or Assamese, or it could be any language for that matter, could be projected outside through our own methods. We have set up a separate division for that. And we are into the process of preparing a catalog, a detailed catalog, Until now, it was all the domain of English publications. This will contain the major works in Indian languages also. Because I am not comfortable with the usage regional language. It's all Indian language, nothing like regional language. So the Indian language books will be a part of our catalog. And whenever we participate in a fair abroad, these catalogs will be carried, and we will be a facilitator wherever possible for taking these books abroad so that translation and copyright transfer could be thought of, concluded across the table. See, the migration of the New Delhi Book Fair last year and setting up the migration of New Delhi Book Fair from the biennial to annual last year, which was another major event for repositioning NBT. Perhaps there will be continuity when we think of this kind of operations. So there we put up a rights table where perhaps this kind of transactions, deals could be done between the publishers from all parts of the world. And one more thing we are going to do, which will be of interest to all, we are going to launch a website, a transparent website where any writer or any publisher can upload his book. A committee within NBT will scrutinize the books and see whether some of them could be eligible for inclusion in our global catalog, which will be available to any publisher anywhere in the world, online. So perhaps some of them could take fancy towards this publication, which will otherwise remain unexplored or untouched. And I'm sure that once this scheme stabilizes, this will be major. This will provide a big boost for the Indian writing. And the last thing is that we have launched a scheme for financing or giving translation grants for transfer to foreign languages. So this is an ambitious scheme launched by NBT about 3 or 4 months back. We are sure that once it stabilizes, this will be definitely a biggest boost for the writing in Indian English. And I don't want to prolong my presentation or speech. My role here is basically to welcome our 2 dignitaries. So kind enough, they are so kind enough to come down.
Thank you, Mr. Sikandar, for your very generous introduction. Professor Andre Béteille, Shri Setu Madhavan, Chairman of National Book Trust, M. Sikandar, my friend, Director of National Book Trust, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great pleasure as well as an honor to be here to preside over the National Book Trust Foundation Day Lecture. At the very outset, I would like to congratulate the National Book Trust for organizing this lecture series and organizing it so well. Secondly, I would like to congratulate the National Book Trust for choosing Professor Andre Béteille for delivering this year's lecture. I don't think they could have chosen a better person to speak, to give a talk on a subject which is so close to our heart. The subject is the books and reading habits, books and readings in India today. Professor Andre Béteille has been introduced, but I would say that he is not only a great scholar, he is one who has inspired so many people in his area of work, and is truly a role model for all researchers, particularly in social sciences. And therefore, I'm very happy indeed to be here to listen to the talk to be given by Professor Andre Béteille, and I want to congratulate the National Book Trust for having chosen him to deliver this year's Foundation Day lecture. I would also like to congratulate the National Book Trust of India, which, as we know and we have been told, is the vision of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. NBT is actively engaged in promoting books and reading in our country for last 55 years. I have personally seen National Book Trust and their mobile exhibition vans reaching the remotest corners of our country and catering to the needs of the rural population. I must heartily compliment the National Book Trust for its efforts, the efforts that NBT has been taking in taking the books to the doorsteps of the common man and that too at a very affordable prices. And therefore, NBT, I would like to commend National Book Trust for all the great job that they have been doing. As we all know, in a knowledge society requires critical thinking and good literature, and therefore the need for producing good literature in India is even more important today than it was ever before, because we do talk about demographic dividend. The average age of India today is only 24, and by the year 2020, the average age of India would be 29, at which time the average age of United States would be 37, average age of China would be 38, average age of Western Europe would be 42, and the average age of Japan would be 49. So we have this tremendous advantage in terms of having a large and growing young population, and that is where I think the NBT would have to focus in future. NBT, National Book Trust, has been mandated to produce quality books in English, Hindi and Indian languages, and I'm very happy to note that they are right now publishing in as many as 30 Indian languages. Recently, they have translated my book, which is mentioned in that introduction, The Untouchables, into Konkani, and that was the 20th language that that book has gone into. And the current size, they say, current size of the Indian publication industry is roughly about US dollars 2 million, and it is getting organized more than what it was before. Recently, I'm told that the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industries, they have projected growth of Indian publishing industry at the rate of about 15% per year. So this all goes to show the urge of the young adults for books as well as for knowledge. And I'm heartened to know, and you certainly would be heartened to know, that India ranks today number 3rd. It ranks 3rd in producing books in English after the United States and UK. The growing demand for books in India shows people's inclination to read more and more books in search of knowledge. This is quite encouraging, especially when rapid technological changes are taking place around the globe. Setu Madhavanji talked about the e-revolution, e-books and e-contents, and he generally understood that they are posing a threat to the existence of physical books in Europe and other developed countries. But as you rightly pointed out, even in a wired society very well-wired society like South Korea, you give a very interesting statistics that where the book market is so large, even there, electronic books are only 4% of the total turnover in books. And I think that is very, very interesting. Incidentally, just to give you an example of the great reading habits of Korean, I have something personal to say there. You know, my book, Untouchables, which is mentioned in this brief introduction, that made all sorts of records in India and in Marathi. Originally, it was written in Marathi, and then I wrote it in English. I wrote it in Marathi 20 years ago, and it has now sold. Last month, 161st edition of that book came in Marathi. Now, this looks big enough, but remember, wait until you hear what happened in Korea. That is the point that I'm trying to make. In 20 years, it produced 160,000 copies were sold. That is over 20 years. In South Korea, in 7 years, they have sold 275,000 copies. Thank you. So that shows that, how much is the reading habit there and the book culture which has permeated into